And I want to share with you some tools that you can do to do this trigger work or shadow work at home to feel transformed and empowered. So when you feel a strong emotional reaction, most of the time your reaction is like this big and what triggered it is like this big. Whenever somebody triggers us, it feels like they're pushing on your scar, or they're like, if it's unhealed, or if it's like a pretty recent one, or if it's never been attended to, right? If it's like an inner child wound that you just haven't taken time to heal and process, then somebody triggering you, somebody at work, your boyfriend, your friend, doing this thing to you feels like somebody's sticking their finger in your wound, right? It's like it's fucked up. It hurts. They had no idea they were gonna trigger an already existing wound within you. So the way to process it, the first step is to just take a minute, step back, breathe. Somebody triggered you, you have your immediate reaction, right? There's space in between those two things, trigger and reaction. Now we know triggers hurt so bad because it feels like somebody picking at your scab. What's the wound? What are they triggering? Here's where you need to decipher, what am I really feeling? Ask yourself, what does this mean about who I am? One I see a lot is when somebody feels like they've been rejected by a partner or someone they're talking to. What does this mean about who I am? Before you react, before you start crying, before you start really feeling rejected, what does this mean about you? A lot of times in this case of rejection, it means that you get rejected. It means that you're unlovable. It means that you're not wanted. It means that you're not worthy of being accepted by that person. That shit hurts, right? Somebody not texting you back, that's like a whatever trigger. The feeling inside of that being, oh, they didn't text me back because I'm not worthy of love, that's gonna get you down. Like that is why you're having the reaction you're having. Not necessarily just because of the trigger, but because of what it made you feel. We know it makes you feel unlovable and unwanted, unaccepted. When have you felt that before? This will give an opportunity for your inner child to come up and be like, remember when those girls didn't want to be friends with us in 5th grade? That hurt real bad. That's when this wound was created, and this story is confirming that we deserve to be wounded in this area, or this trigger, this situation is validating my narrative that I'm not acceptable, that I'm not wanted, the same way those girls in 5th grade made me feel. I know it's like a multiple step process. Here I need to like take a breath, right? Because that's some heavy work, like asking yourself these questions, getting like really deep into processing, like this is already moving through like the gunk of the unconscious. And from there, once you kind of realize, oh, this has nothing to do with boy and has everything to do with that instance in 5th grade, or my parents constantly not paying attention to me, or whatever it is, then you can have a conversation with your inner child about that. And this is where the actual healing happens. The first step of healing is the awareness of it, right? The awareness that the wound even exists in the first place. And then the second big piece is repetition. The only way to change anything is repeating it to yourself. And if you have this unconscious belief, if you're now aware that you have an unconscious belief that you're not lovable, and you feel triggered by any instance in your reality where that's confirmed for you, then you need to repeat to yourself and your inner child that you are lovable. You need to have them fully be persuaded into a new reality that you're creating, in which you are wanted, in which you are loved, in which you are accepted wholeheartedly. Because you're never going to get everyone to accept you, but as long as you tell your inner child that you love yourself, that you know your value regardless of how any random boy treats you, any random 5th grade girls treat you, you're worthy of love, then you can finally release that wound, and that pattern is going to stop repeating. Cease to exist because it served its purpose. The unconscious has now been made conscious, and now we're ready to move on and address the next pattern that comes up. Regardless, you aren't going to see that sort of situation continue to repeat for you, because that person who was put into your life to poke at your wound and put their finger in your scar was sent there to make you pay attention to the scar. It's a really painful way to help you heal, but kind of in this reverse psychology way, how the universe works, its intention is for you to be triggered. It is for you to have these pieces of your shadow come up in this way so that you can make those unconscious wounds, unconscious pains, unconscious anything, really, because there's a lot of good in the unconscious as well, come to light, bring it to consciousness, and from that, we get to see such a beautiful part of your potential, such a beautiful part of who you can be, of how you can act in this world, when we get the opportunity to heal you, to see what life would be like without you giving anybody the possibility to touch that scar or to touch that wound. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like you have the power to control whether or not that's a trigger for you based on the degree to which it's healed. So if you go in and heal it and address that scar on your own and say, hey, I've got this scar, I'm gonna take care of rewriting the story of this scar that says I'm not lovable. I'm going to go and repeat to it and soothe myself by persuading myself of what I already know, which is that I am lovable regardless. And we get to see so much beauty in who you become, which is why it's so important to address shadow work in this way. So let me know if you have any questions on healing and shadow work.